And now, it's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. And gosh, I think coming up on 13 years I've been on this program, helping you guys better understand the real estate market, the conditions within it, the trends within it. I educate you on the process so that you are an informed consumer. When it comes time for you to buy or sell a home, you know the right questions to ask, you're prepared, you have an understanding of the market, you know how to hire the right agent, and you ultimately know how to achieve your goals in the most effective, efficient, and productive and profitable way possible. So that's the goal of the show. Thanks for joining me. We're going to talk about quite a few things today. We're going to, of course, go over what's happening in the market. We're going to talk about the luxury market and I think what it takes to sell luxury real estate now that we're starting to see a little bit of a shift. I want to talk about as-is sales. It seems like every seller out there, you know, if they're not getting the price that they want, are saying, well, I'll let it go, but as is, you know, we're not making any repairs. So I want to talk through that process a little bit. There's some important things that I think you need to know. And then last but not least, even though this isn't the Halloween episode that we typically do every year where we talk about the horror stories we've been through over the years and dealing with just transactions and what can and does sometimes go wrong, how we pivot, how we shift, how we approach and tackle those projects and problems. But we're going to talk about insurance, which is scary and not a fun topic, but something we're going to have to get through, all right? So that's the plan. Now, over the course of the next hour, you might hear something that you want more information on. You might want to reach out to me personally. I can be reached at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can check us out online. My website is listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or you can send me an email if you want, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. And just as a quick reminder, don't forget to check us out on YouTube. You know, I take all these radio shows, I video them, I put them online. We create additional content for folks. Or you can check out our podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, just the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. But anyways, enough of that boring stuff. Let's talk about the market. Not a ton going on, if I'm being honest. It's not a vibrant market. It's certainly not what I would label as hot, all right? Things are slowing down. Part of that is just the seasonality of our market. Things tend to slow down a little bit this time of year. And then we have an interesting bump in like November and December. Interestingly, for the past, I don't know how many years in a row, December has been my second best month in sales, sometimes my best month in sales. Now, part of that might be because most agents aren't working. They take some time off. Part of it might be that people are just procrastinators. Part of it might be that the sellers that have been on the market since the spring or summer that are still on the market are saying to themselves, you know, we got to get this done by the end of the year. Let's lower the price. Let's be more open to negotiations. Let's get this sucker sold. And so you can find some sellers in some fairly needy positions. So that should be good news for you as a buyer, which, you know, buyers haven't had much good news over the past several years. It's been tough. It's been a seller's market. The sellers have been the one that kind of has the cards, right? There's limited inventory. There's a lot of buyers. But then, of course, the market started to shift. Interest rates went up. Properties started staying on the market a little bit longer. We started seeing more properties hit the market, which we didn't necessarily anticipate. But, you know, if you look at just our market in general, inventory, the number of homes available for sale is up 33% compared to this time last year. I mean, there was a point in time last year where we were waiting for the total number of properties to crest 3,000, which is, you know, still kind of a joke and very low in the grand scheme of things, because there was a point in time, I think back in 2011, maybe 2012, where we had like 12,000 properties for sale. Well, over the course of the past 12 months, that number has gone up by 33%. We're not only past 3,000, we're past 4,000. We're at 4,240 properties available for sale at any given point in time. And then when you look at how that's, impacted or measured as it relates to the month's supply of inventory, which is kind of how we measure the health of a real estate market, right? Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? Is it just kind of a normal market where properties are appreciating in line with inflation, but there's no real, upward or downward pressure on prices, on supply, on demand? It's just a normal market. Well, we're not there yet. We're still a seller's market, which is good. We've still got in the grand scheme of things, less than 3 months supply of inventory. And we went from 2 months to 3 months, which is not a huge deal, but it's trending that direction. I look for some numbers, and you know me, I do my analysis on the market. I share that with you guys. That's, I think, one of the reasons why folks ultimately work with us is because we understand the market. We understand the trends within it. We understand how buyers are thinking and feeling. We can use that to our advantage when consulting with our client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, to do the best they can to get the best deal possible. That's what this is all about, right? So one of the things that I look at is the number of properties that are not selling, right? That's not a statistic that the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors furnishes us with. It's something we have to go and find ourselves. And it's something I look at closely. Now, if you look at January to the end of September last year, we had 2,700 homes that failed to sell. Well, if you fast forward to the end of September as of this year, year to date, we've had almost 3,800 properties fail to sell. So that's a 34% increase, and that's a pretty big number, right? So what that's telling me, and this is very true, especially in markets that start to shift, is that sellers are still going for that pie in the sky sales price, right? They're maxing out what they think they can at least list the property for. What can they reasonably justify as a listing price? And how much more can we add to that and get away with it, right? And still get showings, still get interest. Well, I think a lot of sellers are finding that when they hit the market at the price that either they want or that some agent has suggested, because don't forget, a lot of real estate agents out there, especially if they know they're being interviewed, if there are multiple agents involved in that interview process, you're going to have agents that do what we call, in our industry at least, buying the listing. Meaning, maybe they don't have this fantastic marketing plan. Maybe it's like they go up against someone like me that's got all these bells and whistles and does really cool stuff with hyper targeting buyers directly and creating ads to serve to them, and integrating AI and just doing all this cool stuff and really leveraging technology to market properties like we do. Maybe they don't have that. Maybe that's just not in the budget. Maybe it's not a skill set they've developed. But what they do have is the power of persuasion and personality, right? And so what they're going to do is they are going to very cleverly kind of find out what you want to list the property for. They're probably also going to find out what your bottom line is, which be careful about telling folks that until you've hired them, because if you're interviewing multiple agents, you can only choose one. Now other people know your bottom line. That's not a good business practice. But what agents are going to do if they know they're in a competitive environment is they're going to start bumping up what they believe you should list your property for. And they're going to be pretty passionate about it. They're going to really turn on the drama to try and get you to not leave money on the table, right? That's the messaging is, don't leave money on the table. Try and get the most you can. And they're going to convince you to list at a higher price, even though the other agent might have been a better option for you. And then what happens? You sit on the market for 30 days and you then have to reduce your price. It doesn't have to take 30 days, right? There's no, you can be whatever period of time you want. The point is you've missed the mark. You've overpriced your property. Now you have to reduce it. And here's the problem. Here's the challenge. When your property first hits the market, you're essentially marketing to two groups of people, right? And I've said this before on this program, but if you haven't heard it before, bear with me. You're marketing to two groups of people. Group number one are the people that are ready, willing, and able right now. They want to buy a house. They are watching websites. They're being sent information by their realtor. They have an ear to the ground. They want to buy something. They're just waiting for the right property. The second group of people are the people that just enter the market every day, right? Something has changed in their life, and now they're ready to buy a house. That group is always growing, but a lot of them aren't really in a transactional mindset yet. They're in what we call the research phase, right? They're just trying to figure out where they want to be, what homes look like, how much can I afford, or so on and so forth, right? Well, the problem is if you hit the market overpriced, you're going to exhaust that first group of people within about 30 days, the group that are ready, willing, and able, because they're going to see that new listing and they're going to make a decision to come and view it in person or not, or make an offer or not, or if they're just going to sit and wait. And they're going to, there are plenty of websites that allow you to just click on this little heart and save that property and just watch it and then ultimately wait for it to reduce its price. It's what a lot of buyers are doing right now because buyers are fairly patient. There are a ton of people out there right now that would sell if they could find the right property. But then there are the logistics of, do I sell before I buy? Do I buy and then sell? Do I try and do them at the same time? We've done several segments on that. And I encourage you guys to search that up on YouTube. I've got a channel with I think 1,000 or more videos on it to help you through that part of the process. We're not going to talk about that just this moment. But the other thing that I've noticed is that price reductions have gone up. We've seen about a 10% increase in price reduction. So obviously more sellers are having trouble getting the price they want or think they could get or were told they could get. And I think they're more open to negotiations. The total amount received in comparison to the original asking price is lower now than it was this time last year, meaning properties are just more negotiable. Sellers are more, I think, open-minded and saying to themselves, well, I don't want to be greedy. Let's take the deal. Let's go with it, so long as it makes sense. But that in and of itself is a bit of a paradigm shift. And that's what changes markets over time, is that I think you have more sellers being reasonable. They realize there's more competition. If they don't, the buyers are going to make them aware there's more competition when they present that offer. And the market just over time kind of, it stays in motion, but it's certainly not the situation we were in a few years ago where a property hits the market, multiple people want to buy it, and you are in a bare knuckle boxing match to try and win, right? And you're throwing away things like, I don't need to do an inspection. I don't care if it doesn't appraise. I'll pay the per contract amount anyways. I'll take it as is. No, I don't need to do a termite inspection. No, I don't need this, that, and the other. And that's been dangerous. That's a dangerous business tactic when buying a house because so much can go wrong. But I think in general, the market, although a little sluggish in some areas, is still doing just fine. It's still a seller's market. The reality is that even with kind of the changes that we've experienced this year, the slowdown that we've experienced this year, I mean, nationally, we're on pace to sell like I think 3.86 million homes, which would be lower than last year. So market wide, we're just kind of in a bit of a not a slump. It's just slow, and we just have to get used to that new normal, at least for the next few months. But aside from all of that, prices have still gone up. Prices are up 4%. The median sales price in our metro area right now is $420,000. There are plenty of markets where the median sales price is well over $1 million. So properties are continuing to appreciate. And what's been really nice is that mortgage rates have come down. So even though prices have gone up, the reduction in mortgage rates have actually increased affordability by 13% compared to this time last year. So that's good. That just means that your money's stretched further. You can get more upgrades. You can get more size. You can get better location, so on and so forth. So overall, market is still great. I mean, we're still taking listings and selling them. I'd say that at this stage, if you sell within the first week, it's because we either were given enough time to pre-market the house to our database and to the other agents in our brokerage and their database, which works wonders. And we'll talk about that again because we've talked about it recently, but our ability to, I think, front load a lot of marketing activities to introduce your property to a buyer before it's even made publicly available really cuts down on the total amount of time we have to market the property, which increases sellers' ability to negotiate a better price, in my opinion. So, you've got all these folks that I think are waiting on the sideline. They're seeing that properties are a little higher priced than they believe they should be. They're negotiating. They're getting a little bit more in the form of negotiability out of sellers. And we've had a nice little surge because affordability is up 13%. It's still not great. Our affordability index is 80, which means that the median income is only 80% of what is necessary to qualify for the median priced property in this area, given a 20% down payment. So properties are still, I think, largely unaffordable for a lot of people, but we have so many folks moving here from out of state, out of area with money that it's really helped prop up this market. And we've seen this long run of appreciation, decade of appreciation in our market. So overall, if you're thinking of selling, if you're thinking of buying, Properties are still moving. It's just a little bit more of a level playing field. I think sellers still hold the majority of the power, but buyers are getting in their wins. They're getting in their jabs. And, for them, if I'm just speaking, from I don't care about sellers or buyers. I'm not choosing a side. I'm just saying from a market perspective, it's a good thing, right? Overall, you need the market to balance. We can't live in a world where properties are consistently appreciating double digits every year. That's just, it's going to price everybody out of the market. A lot of people that live in their home right now probably couldn't afford to buy the home at its current value if it was on the market, which is great because now we've got a ton of equity nationwide. But anyways, I digress. Let's talk a little bit about the luxury market when we come back. I want to help you guys better understand what's happening there, what it takes, what that type of clientele expects. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Now, if you want to reach out to me, again, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or listingsincharleston.com. Thanks again for joining me this morning as we talk about real estate. We just gave an overall update on the market in Charleston. Overall, still a seller's market. Properties are appreciating, but buyers are getting more negotiability. As inventory starts to rise, I expect that appreciation to flatten out a little bit. We'll see what happens with rates, although we're not expecting any major changes to rates. I don't think 3% is right around the corner, in other words. So if you're sitting waiting for rates to get down to 3%, what I would tell you is that we have a way of getting you close to that, and we can have the seller pay for it. It's called an interest rate buy down or a 2-1 rate buy down, meaning for the first year, your rate is 2% lower than it would have been. The next year, it's 1%. And then the third year, it's back to the normal interest rate you locked in at today. But hopefully by then, rates have come down enough to make sense for you to refinance. And a lot of lenders will do that at no cost. So still plenty of opportunities to buy a great house, get the seller to provide you with a lower payment, and get into home ownership if you're a first-time home buyer. Or for the sellers out there that need to sell in order to buy, it's a tactic that's worked really well with us in the past with properties that we've listed and sold, or properties, of course, that we've identified for our buyers. So if that's something you want to learn more about, I've got all of this stuff and more in a guide that I personally wrote, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston. If you want to get your hands on a copy of that for free, it's close to 50 pages. You can pick and choose the areas that you want to learn more about. But if you just text the word guide to 843-800-0065, text the word guide to 843-800-0065, I'll send you a copy. I'll just need your email address. So let's talk about the luxury real estate market. I think a lot of folks, just let me get this out of the way really quickly, think that because I've been doing this for 20 years and because I've sold 1,500 properties and $1 billion worth of real estate, that my time is only spent in the high end. Not all of it. And I will tell you that I have a team, and we sell anything from a trailer in the middle of nowhere to multi-million-dollar luxury properties or developments. We sell land all over the state. We also have a property management company. I'm also a private money lender. So we're ingrained in pretty much every facet of real estate with the exception of commercial. We know our lane. We don't do commercial real estate. We refer that to a great guy that does great work. But we of course spend quite a bit of time in the upper end of the market. It's something that I personally spend time in, but I work with anybody from any walk of life and any price range, so long as we feel we can actually help them. So just a quick PSA, if you think that your property isn't expensive enough to call and ask for our help, I'm just here to tell you that if you saw our sales, they are all over the board in terms of price range. And it's because we are people focused, not price range focused. So if we can help you, feel free to give me a call, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or listingsincharleston.com. Now, the luxury market right now, today, still fairly vibrant. We still have plenty of folks that are moving here from out of town that are in these markets. You have plenty of people locally, right, that are doing well, that want to upgrade. Sometimes it's a downgrade. You don't know. But when selling luxury real estate, there are, I think, a few things, certainly that I understand, that I think would be helpful for you to understand as well, whether you're a seller or a buyer. And the first one is just the first impression, right? You only get one chance at making a good first impression. And that really, in my opinion, not just has to do with the curb appeal of the home, but the way in which the property is introduced to particular buyers in the first place, right? We'll see $1 million plus homes with iPhone photos. It's just not acceptable. We'll see properties that hit the market with only 1 or 2 photos, and then over time, they'll add more photos. They're just so anxious to get the property on the market that they add as they go. Horrible first impression. A lot of people are going to look at that listing for the first time, spend anywhere from 10 seconds to 10 minutes looking at it. And if you miss your opportunity, the only way to really regain their attention is to add something to the listing or change something about the property, usually the price. So you don't want to miss a good first impression, which is why we spend so much time with our clients, whether it's luxury or not, in getting ready to put the property on the market. Now, and again, this is all in my guide, so text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. But, before we hit the market, we want to talk about staging, decluttering, repairs. Does it make sense to make any changes to the property? Is there an actual return on investment associated with that? What do we need to do to the outside of the property, to the inside of the property to put it in its best light? A lot of folks get really used to living in their home the way that best suits their lifestyle. And sometimes that lifestyle and the placement of furniture is not conducive to selling that property. Like I remember, and I've had several instances like this where, we're selling somebody's home, their retirement age, and in their big, beautiful family room, they basically just have 2 lazy boys with a table between them so that they can watch TV. Not the best use of the space. It needs to be staged. Now, we obviously decide whether that's something they want to move forward with or not, whether it's something we want to use real furniture, their furniture, rent furniture, or virtually stage, which does wonders to listings. It's incredible what you can do with virtual staging, and they can't really tell the difference online. Now, of course, when they get there, they're going to say, where's all the furniture I saw in the photos? But the point is, you got them there, and they can use those photos to envision what that space will be like. So making the first impression, not just in person, but online is incredibly important. You have to understand who you're marketing to. The messaging has to be correct. You have to sell not just the house, but the area and the lifestyle associated with it. And if you're adding as you go, or if you skimp on that part of the process, you're just not going to sell it for as much money, in my opinion. In terms of marketing, I always tell folks that I'm really in 2 businesses, right? I'm in the business of helping people buy, sell, manage, invest real estate. And I'm in the business of finding people to help buy, sell, manage, invest in real estate, right? And so it's the same thing when you go to market a property for sale. And you have to understand that I split marketing up into 2 basic categories, reactive and proactive. Reactive are all the things that happen kind of by default. You put the property in the MLS. Then it gets shared with a service called List Hub that then broadcasts the listing information to every website known to man, right? Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Redfin, every agent's website, every brokerage's website, you name it, List Hub shares that information from the MLS to all of those different areas, right? Most agents, aside from putting a sign in the yard, maybe doing an open house and putting something on their personal Facebook page, that's the extent of the marketing they do, right? It does not answer the question which most sellers should be asking, every seller should be asking rather, is how are you, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, going to find buyers for my property specifically? What are the things that you're going to be spending time and money on that will find a buyer for my house? That's a very logical, reasonable question, and frankly should be a demand of sellers in the higher end, really any seller, right? But most agents have gotten really, they've gotten clever in terms of how they answer this question, but the reality is most don't do more than that. They put it on online, and then they wait for inquiries, or they wait for agents to show the property to their own buyer because they saw it in the MLS. Or the buyer saw it online, sent it to their agent, and then scheduled a showing. It does not address the question of what are you going to do specifically to find buyers from our house. That's where And, I don't go into all of this on my radio show because realtors listen, but that's the big differentiator between us and other agents from a marketing perspective, is that we identify who we think these buyers are. We target them demographically, geographically, and through online behaviors, and then we place ads in front of them about your property. And there's a bunch more that we do there, but that's the gist of it, is we go out into the world and we find the buyers and we market to them directly, rather than just hoping that a buyer that's in the mood to buy a house goes to a website and sees your home. It's all luck of the draw. We don't do luck of the draw with marketing. We, of course, do those things. Our listings are on all those websites, but we're not relying on that solely. And there's a bunch more that we do. I won't go into it, but that's incredibly important, especially when you're trying to source a high-end buyer. And I think in line with that is pricing it right. Buyers have for a lot of people in the higher end, buying that house is a want more so than it is a need. Now, of course, you're going to have people that are moving to the area, they're relocating. It's more of a need than a want. But there are a lot of folks that just, hey, this could be a second home. I don't need to get something this expensive, even though I could afford to. They're value conscious, I think. Of course, you're going to have plenty of folks in the upper end that buy a home that's renovated and, tear out a bunch of stuff because they want to put their own spin on it. But pricing it right, I think, is incredibly important in the luxury market, because if not, it just sits. And the longer these properties sit, the harder they become to sell, unless sometimes drastic changes take place, like creating a new incentive or reducing the asking price, which is why sometimes in selling luxury real estate, you got to be a little patient with the process. Obviously, the higher in price the home, the less buyers there are that are available in general that can afford that type of home. The question is the agent that you've hired truly connecting the dots and sourcing buyers for your house? Or is it just a set it and forget it mentality, right? Are their feet up on the desk waiting for the phone to ring because from their perspective, their marketing job is done. It's out there for the world to see. Now we just need for the world to respond. That's not, the marketing strategy that you want when selling a high-end property like this. And I would say just, maybe another tip or piece of advice is to be open and honest with your agent. Work with them, not against them. Sometimes in the higher end, clientele are a little tougher to read. They're more private. They're not as willing and open to share certain things, certain goals, financial goals. And it at times can make not necessarily our job harder, but the relationship a little strained, right? Because it feels like there's just, we haven't gotten to the point where you're totally honest about the need, the process, what you expect out of it. And so just be open with your agent. Help them rely on their experience to determine whether your goals are achievable in this market or not. And, find the agent that's going to tell you the truth. And then I'd say the last thing is be open-minded to throwing in some incentives, whether that be, something that you give away with the property. We've had clients that have sold properties that gave away boats and cars, and I'm not suggesting necessarily that you do that in order to sell a luxury property, but I think just be creative at times. Sometimes that can make a lot of difference to a particular buyer, and maybe it's something that you just want to get rid of anyways, and you take a few grand for it, but if it makes the buyer buy your multi-million-dollar house, then it was money well, I guess, given in that specific example. But it could also be artwork. It could be all kinds of certain things. But I don't think that as a market, a luxury market, we have conditions that would require you to give away a large portion of incentives. Sometimes a home warranty, maybe some closing costs or a rate buy down is more than enough, or just a credit so that the buyer can receive it at closing and deal with something that you just didn't feel like dealing with before selling the property. Maybe you need a new roof. Maybe your AC units are old. Maybe the flooring has been worn out by your dogs and it needs to be refinished, but you don't want to move out of your house for 2 weeks so that they can refinish your floors just so you can move back in and then sell it and move back out. I mean, it's all logical, rational, right? But I think that in helping you kind of game plan all of this, the sooner you can give an agent a call to help with the process and offer insight and suggestions and recommendations, put you in touch with certain people that they know are going to save you time and money and frustration, to give us that opportunity so that we can truly help. And so if you're kind of in that position where you think maybe in the next few months, maybe spring of next year, or now, of course, you're thinking about selling a property or buying a property or both, then let's talk about that process and let's game plan that and let's prepare. You can give me a call at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Check out our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Check out our YouTube videos. Just Google the Brian Beatty team. You'll see them. But anyway, stick around. We're going to talk a little bit about as-is sales and then insurance. Ooh, fun topics. But things I think you need to know. Because this is where the market is shifting right now, and there's some lessons to be learned here. So stick around. I always like to take a moment and just say thank you to those of you that listen to the program, rely on the information within it, help better understand the market, the process, who you'll ultimately want to hire when it comes time to buy, sell, invest, or manage your existing real estate. And just wanted to say thank you. So if we can help you in any way, if you're thinking about transacting in real estate, maybe you just have a real estate related question, you need a referral for a contractor, whatever the case might be, we're here to help. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. So switching gears for just a moment, talking about as-is sales. We're starting to see more and more people, I guess, be open-minded to as-is sales, whether it be the buyer or the seller. I think that for sellers, as we were talking about earlier, the market has become a little more negotiable for buyers, right? They're starting to win just a little bit more in negotiations with the seller. Maybe they're beating up a little bit more on the price. Maybe they're beating up a little bit more on concessions, like the seller paying for some of the buyer's closing costs or making repairs or buying down their interest rate or offering a home warranty or offering a credit for, renovations, whatever it might be. Buyers are starting to win just a little bit more. And of course, sellers don't like that, right? And sellers have heard for months, if not years, of stories of their friends that put their property on the market and it sold the next day, and they have a line around the block to buy their house. That's not reality in this market anymore. Every once in a while, you get lucky, and like I was saying earlier, you can create that kind of scenario, but you have to take the time to let your agent build that pipeline. And so, again, maybe next show we'll talk a little bit more about pre-marketing and how we do that, how we create interest in the property before it even hits the market so that by the time it goes live on the MLS and on all these websites, we've already got a bunch of showings scheduled, right? And it makes buyers think that, oh, wait a minute, this is a hot one. If I don't do something about this house, someone else will, right? And so when you do a really good job in marketing and the agent has time to do that, and the skill set and, of course, the systems and the mindset and all that good stuff. But if you can effectively do that, then you're going to have some buyers that might be open-minded to an as-is sale. On the flip side, though, you're seeing a lot of sellers that are getting frustrated at the fact that they're not getting the price that they thought they were going to get. So if I take this deal, it has to be as is, right? So the problem is, and I'll get just a little technical for just a moment here, but writing as is on a contract effectively does nothing. And here's why. Our contracts have a point in time. It's usually, it's totally negotiable period of time, but it's 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. If it's land, it can be a year. But it's called a due diligence period. And within that period of time, the buyer can perform inspections. They can choose to move forward and purchase the property as is. They can try and renegotiate, or they can just terminate the contract. And that sometimes really frustrates, for obvious reasons, that frustrates sellers, right? A buyer puts a home under contract and then the week later says, you know what? I don't want to buy this place. Never mind. Sorry for wasting your time. I just don't want to buy it. My bad, right? Well, that's why in our contracts, there's also a termination fee, which says, hey, if you're going to terminate the contract, if we don't even have a chance to negotiate repairs, you're just going to say, see you later. We want some money for the time that we've taken to give you the opportunity to inspect it. We've lost time marketing to other buyers that might have been more serious that didn't decide to just leave us high and dry. So because we have this period of time in our contract where the buyer can inspect, renegotiate, or just flat out terminate. If you write as is on a contract, but you still have a due diligence period, you've effectively you've accomplished nothing, because that buyer can still renegotiate or still terminate. The correct way to do an as-is sale is to remove the buyer's ability to inspect at all. And that is scary for a lot of buyers for obvious reasons. So if you're a seller and you want to sell as is, you have to work with an agent that understands this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're going to think that you're selling your property as is, and then in about a week or so, the buyer's going to hit you up and say, hey, you know what? Actually, we need 10 grand off your asking price, or we need this long list of repairs. And if you don't, then we're walking. Right? You've given them that opportunity because you didn't understand how to effectively make it an as-is sale. And there are buyers that will accept that. And as a seller, you might be able to get a better price if, again, you work with an agent that is willing to work with you and front load a lot of activity, get contractors out to the property, right? Maybe even do a pre-listing home inspection. You know, we've got, as a service, we offer free pre-listing home inspections. So maybe you get that pre-listing home inspection, then we get a contractor out there to look at everything, figure out how much it's going to cost, and then take that into account with our pricing strategy, or get quotes and say, hey, this is how much it's going to cost to repair this house. Take that into account with your offer, and it'll be an as-is sale because you understand what's wrong with it, if anything, right? It's, again, just being creative, I think, right now is what's necessary to sell real estate at a high level and still get your specific client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, to win. You know, there's plenty of ammo on either sides. It's just a matter of how you play the poker game, right? And that's what negotiations are. And I've done it 1,500 times at least. So I think I know a thing or two about a thing or two these days. But anyways, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about insurance and how much they've gone up and just what's going on. We had a great meeting with Andrew Molinax of the People's Insurance Company. He came into our team meeting and he talked about it. And so I'm going to give you some highlights on that. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Or, give me a call, 843-800-0065 if you want to chat about real estate. Again, we help people buy, sell, invest, and manage because we own a property management company. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. I want to end the show with just a bit of a friendly reminder, right? A PSA. Obviously, we have had a tough time recently with these hurricanes, and my heart goes out to all those that are affected by it. I've got family that is in the Greenville area. Thankfully, they were okay. But we were up there last weekend, and, you go once every 500 feet, and there's been some massive tree that's been cut in half that was blocking the road. And so I want to talk about insurance because I think a lot of folks don't really even understand what their policies are. They've not looked at it. They've not been explained what's on their policy. And for a lot of folks, it's just when they buy the house, they get a recommendation for an insurance agent. That insurance agent gives them, in most instances, or at least at the buyer's request, the lowest price option available. And then when it comes time for you to actually use it, there could be problems. So here's what I would suggest. And the reason for this is because two separate things happened to me that are just infuriating. Number one, I get a message from my flood insurance provider in downtown Charleston, where I own an investment property. And they say, hey, we've not gotten your payment. We're going to have to put force-placed insurance on the property, which is going to be a lot more expensive than what you could go and get yourself. And so I had to call them up. I was like, look, guys, you're the payer. You're supposed to be the one paying this. This is why I escrow money for it. And you've sent me a letter saying that you haven't received payment. Pay it. So first of all, make sure that your lender is actually paying your insurance policies. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that there's just no accountability these days with these companies that's supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing to make your life a little bit easier, right? Otherwise, I'll just I don't mind taking responsibility and paying my own insurance and paying my own taxes, but that's what you get when you've got a lender at times. So first and foremost, just make sure that they're being paid on time. Never let your insurance policies lapse. And secondly, and just as importantly, I want everybody to call their insurance agent. So insurance agents out there that are listening, sorry you're about to get busy, but also you're welcome. You need to have a conversation, I think, with your insurance agent about your insurance policy. I think you need to really understand what's insured, what's covered. And part of the reason why I bring this up is because 2 years ago, I think I was paying a little over $4,000 for hazard insurance for my duplex downtown. Then last year, that carrier dropped out of the market like almost every major carrier has. And the new quote was $19,000. Well, obviously, I had to shop that around. I did, and I got it down. But then I realized that the replacement value, right, the amount of money the insurance company would get you in the event of a total loss, was not even close to what it would actually cost me to rebuild that property. It was like half. So, of course, what happens when you add more replacement value to your policy? The price goes up. So we've gone from $4,000 to $10,000 in the course of 2 years. And had I not paid attention, I would have locked in on a policy that didn't have nearly enough coverage in the event of some sort of catastrophic disaster. And we obviously have seen firsthand in many instances the damage that can be caused by these hurricanes. And we're just in a hurricane-prone area. So please do yourself a favor. Call your insurance agent and just check in with them. Ask about your policy. Ask if anything needs to be adjusted. Have them explain to you what you're paying, what your coverages are, what your deductibles are, and just gain a little peace of mind, right? And so that's it. That's my big PSA, but I think a really important one given the events that have occurred recently. So if I, again, can help you with anything real estate related, you want a good recommendation for an insurance agent or any other service provider for that matter, or if you want to get your hands on that guide that I keep talking about that a lot of people have received, and thank you for your kind words for those of you that have read through it. If you want to get a copy of that guide, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston, text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. Check us out on YouTube, on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all that great stuff. But either way, you guys have a great weekend, and thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.